6 of the House of Commons Standing Committee on Industry, Science and Technology. Today's meeting is taking place in a hybrid format pursuant to the House Order of January 25th, 2021. The proceedings will be made available via the House of Commons website. So that you are aware, the webcast will always show the person speaking rather than the entirety of the committee. To ensure an orderly meeting, I'd like to outline a few rules to follow. Members and witnesses may speak in the official language of their choice. Interpretation services are available for this meeting. You have the choice at the bottom of your screen of either off, English, or French. Please select your preference now. A reminder that all comments by members and witnesses should be addressed through the chair. Before speaking, please wait until I recognize you by name, and when you are not speaking, your microphone should be on mute. Please do not talk over each other, as the interpreters will not be able to capture your speaking notes. As is my normal practice, I will hold up a yellow card for when you have 30 seconds left in your intervention. I will hold up a red card for when your time for questions has expired. Please keep your screen in gallery view so that you can see the cards when I hold them up. We have a tight schedule today, so I will intervene if you do go over time. Pursuant to Standing Order 1082 and the motion adopted by the committee on November 5th, 2020, the House of Commons Standing Committee on Industry, Science and Technology is meeting today to continue its study on the green economic recovery from COVID-19. I'd like to now welcome our witnesses. From the Canadians for Tax Fairness, we have D.T. Cochrane, economist. From Clean Energy Canada, Mr. Mark Zacharias, Special Advisor, and Mr. Felix Whitten, Senior Policy Advisor. From NRChem, Mr. Michel Chornet, Executive Vice President, Engineering, Innovation and Operations. From Whitecap Resources, Grant Fagram, President and Chief Executive Officer. And from Wildlands League, Ms. Janet Sumner, Executive Director. Each witness will present for 5 minutes, followed by rounds of questions. With that, we will start with Mr. Cochrane. You have the floor for 5 minutes.
Okay, I should be, hopefully I'm unmuted. I have notes that I'm going to read from. So thank you for welcoming Canadians for Tax Fairness to speak on this topic. The pandemic has taught us many lessons. Most importantly, it taught us that we are inextricably dependent on each other. Individualism is a myth. Part of this lesson is that government is a vital institution for equitable social protection and coordination. Despite many government failures during the pandemic, no amount of market-driven, profit-seeking private sector initiative can replace government's unique roles, especially its fiscal capabilities. There is almost unanimous agreement that the federal government did the right thing, stepping in with unprecedented levels of financial support. This spending served a dual purpose. Most importantly, it put money in the accounts of people who needed it. But it also kept the financial system from seizing up, which would have added a financial crisis on top of the health crisis. Of course, deficit chicken littles are already proclaiming that the debt sky is falling. However, we just need to remember that federal deficits are non-federal surpluses. The debt is money the government spent and has not taxed back yet. While we slowly move out of the pandemic economy, we must maintain financial supports. The recovery, like the pandemic, will be K-shaped. The government can make sure no one falls through the cracks. Unfortunately, the pandemic is not the only crisis. We still have the climate crisis. The recovery is a chance for the federal government to take the pandemic's lessons and guide us toward a just and sustainable economy. It can use its unique fiscal capabilities to create greater certainty through decisive leadership. In the words of economist Mariana Mazzucato, we need a mission-oriented economy. The economy of the future will not look like the economy of the past. There is growing support to wind down high-emission industries more quickly, even from workers in those industries. We should be helping workers transition with income supports, training, and employment. The government should invest in low carbon care institutions. Budget 2021 showed we can get creative on childcare. Now, let's do the same with pharmacare, dental care, mental health care, elder care, ecological care. If these are priorities, and they should be, they need to be funded like priorities. There is much work to be done achieving a just transition. We have the necessary material, knowledge, and labor resources, but we need the government to mobilize its financial resources. Stop trying to entice the private sector towards sustainability with tax incentives and cheap lending. If the government spends what is needed to transform existing industries and develop new ones, the private sector will follow. Taxes have an essential role in creating a just, sustainable economy. We commend the current government for the carbon tax, which reduces the carbon subsidy reaped by businesses in high emission industries. However, we need to go further, faster. We need a border adjustment so foreign emitters do not get preferential treatment. We need to support households and communities as they transition from dependence on artificially cheap fossil fuels, which malformed our local economies. The carbon subsidy has disproportionately benefited those at the top of our economic hierarchy. Taxes have a role to play there as well. The Biden administration is leaving behind the decades-long folly of trickle-down policies by increasing the US corporate income tax rate, imposing a global minimum corporate tax rate, as well as a minimum tax on book income. Even the Conservative government in the UK plans to increase the corporate tax rate. We should follow their lead and then go farther. End capital gains exemptions, close loopholes, shut down tax havens, bring in a progressive wealth tax. Money spent into the economy circulates as expenditures become incomes, become expenditures. However, we have a trickle up economy. As the money circulates, portions are relentlessly siphoned off as interest and profit, which flow to asset owners. Because asset ownership is highly unequal, the rich get richer simply because they are already rich. They did not earn it, they do not need it. Worse, they use that money to gain political advantages and preferential rules. Progressive tax measures reduce inequality and the illegitimate power of the wealthy. They also help to keep the money circulating. To build our just society, the government should spend money into the economy where it is useful and needed, and it should tax the money out from where it is not. Thank you.
Thank thank you very much, Mr. Cochrane. We will now go to Clean Energy Canada. You have the floor for 5 minutes.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Mark Zacharias, and I'm a special advisor to Clean Energy Canada. We are a climate and clean energy think tank at Simon Fraser University. I'm based in Victoria, BC. I'll be speaking today on how to help Canadian industries position themselves to export to markets that are increasingly concerned about climate change. Canadian industries are already well positioned for success, and with some additional actions, they can be the foundation of Canada's economy for decades to come. 127 nations with a combined GDP of $46 trillion have adopted or are considering net goals, meaning carbon neutrality by 2050. This list includes not only Canada, but also our largest trading partners, the US, the EU, and China. It's not just countries that are committing to net zero. 30 of the world's largest investors with $9 trillion US in assets have pledged to move to carbon neutral portfolios by 2050 or sooner. The move by our closest trading partners towards a lower carbon future is a huge economic opportunity for Canada. For example, the World Bank predicts that the production of certain metals and minerals used in clean technologies could increase by nearly 500% over the next 3 decades. The global shift towards a net zero future is expected to trigger what's been called a green economy supercycle, during which many of the goods Canada produces could see massive increases in demand. Canada is well positioned to prosper in a net zero world. Our commodity exports are vast and varied as the country itself. Aluminum, steel, wood, fertilizer, cement, minerals, some of which are already the world's cleanest thanks to Canada's electricity grid that is 83% emissions-free, plus an economy-wide carbon price. However, Canada cannot be complacent if it wishes to be competitive in a global low-carbon world. Our competitors are already planning ahead. For example, the United Kingdom recently announced its 10-point plan for a green industrial revolution, which sets out the approach the government will take to build back better, support green jobs, and accelerate their path to net zero. President Biden's proposed American Jobs Plan is similar to the UK plan and will invest in transitioning the US to a clean electricity grid that will power clean industries, buildings, and transportations. There are a number of key takeaways from the US, UK, and how other nations are transforming their economies. First, recognize that your climate plan is your economic plan. Second, don't build back to what you have, build back to what you will need. And third, act now to attract and grow the industries that will prosper in a net zero world. Canada's recent climate plan and budget 2021 are an excellent start. However, Canada could take the following additional steps to grow our industries and the jobs they create. First, a buy clean approach in which the federal government builds infrastructure with low carbon materials and incentivizes other levels of government to do the same, thus increasing demand for competitively clean Canadian goods. The recent greening government announcement between the US and Canada is a good first step. Second, Canada must determine which products a net zero world will need and which of these products Canada can be competitive in supplying. It must then pursue new industries that capitalize on Canada's low carbon advantages. A good example is establishing a self-sufficient battery and critical minerals supply chain to establish and grow domestic battery and clean technology manufacturing. Third, Canada must invest in research, development, and in deployment of clean technologies to support industries with growth prospects in a net zero world. Canada must ensure it gets a foothold in new industries where it can lead, such as clean hydrogen, battery manufacturing, and carbon removal. It must also align tax structures and incentives while encouraging private investment in clean industry. And lastly, Canada needs a clean Canada export brand that advertises Canadian products as environmentally superior. So to summarize, Canada has tremendous opportunities to export into a net zero world. However, Canada must recognize that the climate signal and the market signal are rapidly becoming one and the same and plan accordingly. Thank you for your invitation to speak today, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you very much. We will now go to Monsieur Charnet. You have the floor for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ladies and gentlemen, members of the Standing Committee, I'm Michel Charnet, Senior Vice President, Engineering, Innovation and Operations with NACM. I thank you for your invitation. This theme of economic recovery presents a unique opportunity for energy transition. First, a few words. NACM was founded in 2000 by my father Esteban, professor at Sherbrooke, and my brother Vincent. They developed and commercialized unique rupture technology in the world, producing advanced biofuels and renewable chemical products from biomass and non-recyclable residuals. We are a key building block of a true circular economy, and we contribute to the diversification of the energy portfolio while we offer a sustainable alternative to landfills and incineration. So we have an accessible source of carbon. Our headquarters is in Montreal, and we operate a large-scale commercial operation in Edmonton, and there are two innovation centers in Westbury, Quebec, and Edmonton. We employ over 250 people across Canada. Thanks to our advanced recycling technology, we have created industrial partnerships in Canada and internationally with groups like Suncor, Nova, Shell, Repsol, Pyman, and Suez. We are based on a business model that is founded on innovation. And we develop a technology that requires a lot of research and development to make sure that our technology is viable and that can be commercialized at a large scale. We rely on private and public funds, we have shown the flexibility and the maturity of our advanced recycling technology, but the need to innovate hasn't ended. Even if we have reached commercial maturity, the competition means that additional investments are required. Canada has a unique opportunity to develop an advanced recyclable model that will make us competitive and reducing greenhouse gases and creating jobs. The Canadian model will be based on the infrastructure in place, low intensity products. Last December, with a group of partners, strategic partners including Shell, Suncor, Proman, Hydro-Quebec, that will supply hydrogen and renewable oxygen, and the support of Canadian and Quebec governments, we've announced the construction of the biofuel plant in Varennes on the South Shore. It's a project representing 875 million Canadian dollars. We'll be producing second-generation biofuels with low carbon dioxide intensity and will produce 170,000 tons of CO2. So each year, the plant will convert in production about 125 liters of biofuels, over 200,000 tons of non-recyclable materials, and it will generate in Quebec benefits of 85 million and create 500 jobs in construction. At the economic level, the future is promising. Right now, we have a very quick progression in the market, and there is more technology that is reaching maturity to facilitate the transition. So quickly, let's look at the Canadian and global context. 2018, Canada was the 10th largest greenhouse gases producers in the world, and we sold petroleum worth 44 billion liters. Prime Minister Trudeau made the commitment to reduce these emissions by 40 to 45%. And Canada has promised to have a carbon neutral economy by 2050. To reach these goals, we must create favorable market conditions. We must create a competitive market to attract private investments and have bioenergy products, a tax credit for investment to facilitate this, to make sure that there is sustainable life cycle support. We must strengthen the current steps. In conclusion, I will reiterate what I said earlier. The Canada must create favorable conditions for innovation and contribute directly to the economic recovery during this post-COVID-19 period. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Charnet.
Mr. Fagerheim, you have the floor for 5 minutes. Oh, you're on mute, sir.
Thank you, everyone. And my name is Grant Fagerheim, and I'm the President and CEO of Whitecap Resources with our head office in Calgary, Alberta. Our company produces approximately 110,000 BOE per day, comprised of light oil and natural gas, and employs approximately 700 employees and consultants in field operations in Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta, and British Columbia. We understand the expectations of Canadians, along with worldwide investors, that decarbonization and reducing greenhouse gas emissions are essential, and feel confident that our energy industry is moving rapidly to meet the challenge. I sit before you as the operator of the largest carbon sequestration project in the world, located in southeast Saskatchewan. To date, we have sequestered and stored 36 million tons of CO2 and continue to inject approximately 2 million tons per year of CO2. Although there are many aspirational emission targets being brought forward, we have already safely achieved a net negative emitter status, which for clarity means that we sequester and store more CO2 than our Scope 1 and Scope 2 emissions from ongoing operations. The Canadian oil and gas, natural gas sector will play a vital role in energy transition as we advance through that includes global and Canadian climate change expectations. Energy transition will take time, will require a significant amount of continued innovation and technological advancement, and will not be specifically focused in any specific region in our country. All different forms of energy are required to address the global fight against climate change including current energy sources, along with the new emerging opportunities. A practical and measured approach is required that we will provide widespread job opportunities and economic distribution across our country. In addition to emerging technologies, including hydrogen, lithium, biofuels, and renewables that we participate in to carbonize our electricity, transportation sectors, and building materials, oil and gas will continue to be essentials for decades to come. With carbon dioxide being treated as the main contributor to climate change, we need to ensure broad and immediate implementation of carbon capture, utilization, and storage technology beyond our existing projects. This can happen right now. It is well understood and recognized that light oil and natural gas reservoirs are proven to be effective means of reliable and permanent CO2 storage, and this practice plays a significant role in combating climate change. CCUS from all existing sources can be very positive for Canada, making positive impact on the environment, employment opportunities, business investment, and economic growth. We will need to further considering not only air decarbonization, but also land and water use. What's important to note is that full cycle, cradle to grave environmental footprint analysis for all types of energy materials will require increased scrutiny and due diligence, something we haven't been doing to date. We require thoughtful dialogues that include respecting and advancing the great gift of resources our country is blessed with. Post-pandemic job creation opportunities will be dependent upon our energy, environmental, and economic policies. Canada has the opportunity to continue to lead in responsible development of its resources while decarbonizing energy. Not only does a focused expansion on carbon capture, utilization, and storage technology help the greenhouse gas emission reductions and increase job opportunities, it also importantly links into the energy future of hydrogen development that requires even higher levels of carbon capture and sequestration. There are many wide-reaching technical, financial, logical, and practical challenges that face our country. We must ensure Canadian businesses in all urban and rural areas, regardless of size, can attract investment, remain competitive, and have a prosperous future while meeting Canada's international greenhouse gas commitments, reduction commitments. Setting measurable, near-term, long-term objectives is critical in attaining the success we want. In closing, I recommend that the federal government, carbon capture, utilization, storage, federal tax credits should be expanded to include all projects, CCUS projects, in the tax credit structure to not only add value to Canadian-based energy companies, but also to demonstrate immediate greenhouse gas emission reductions in approving existing technology to our fellow Canadians. Should this not be considered by our government, we risk further falling behind other countries, including our US neighbor, in attracting investment, job opportunities, and advancing clean tech technologies. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we will now go to Ms. Sumner. You have the floor for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much. Good morning, and thank you for the opportunity to speak with you about economic recovery from COVID-19. My name is Janet Sumner, Executive Director for Wildlands League. Wildlands League is one of Canada's preeminent conservation organizations collaborating with communities, governments, Indigenous peoples, scientists, and progressive industry to protect nature and find solutions that work. We have been working in the public interest since 1968, imagining the future we need and the solutions to make it happen. Our vision is to protect at least half of Canada's land, freshwater, and ocean to address both the climate crisis and the collapse of nature. In 1999, we helped usher in the single largest expansion of the Ontario park system, adding 2.4 million hectares of protection. We are also known for connecting people to nature through events such as our annual Paddle the Rouge. For the second year running, the World Economic Forum annual risk report named environmental problems in the top tier list of fears for the economy, specifically climate change and biodiversity loss. A healthy economic recovery will depend on growing the economy, but also reducing the economic risks due to climate change and biodiversity loss. A healthy natural world, therefore, is the very foundation for a healthy economic recovery. For most Canadians, a healthy natural world requires taking action to rebuild and restore nature where we live. Scientists and healthcare providers are urging, even prescribing Canadians to get out into nature to maintain mental, emotional, and physical health during this pandemic. Whether young or old, new to the country, or multi-generational, communities have expressed the need for more access to nature. We must therefore invest in the creation of more urban and near urban protection, the regeneration of wetlands and restoring endangered species habitat, planting trees and rebuilding the natural infrastructure in our cities that is key to improving flood management and flood reduction, creating ecological corridors like Coots to Escarpment, and ensuring there are more opportunities for communities to interact with nature, such as on the Trans-Canada Trail, and working with the agricultural, ranching, and rural communities on restoration projects, such as the work that is done by Alice in Alberta and Ontario and elsewhere. In Scarborough, where I live, Rouge National Urban Park is close to home. This fall, the superintendent for Rouge National Urban Park took my team on a walk, taking all COVID-19 safety precautions into account. We toured where they plan to restore the wetland and bring back the capacity of the Rouge to manage low and high water events. By our own conservative estimates, this project will result in more than 25 direct jobs per year. It will require engagement with 9 First Nations in partnership and an urban design consulting firm to get the project design right, public consultation and communications expertise, architectural renderings, Parks Canada staff to lead and do, Toronto Regional Conservation Authority staff, Phragmites removal teams and expertise. The Rouge is just choking in this invasive species. Construction crews for the new boardwalk, mechanics to maintain equipment and machines, wildlife specialists, interpretation and education staff, manufacturers of decking and specialized material, in addition to the new wardens, beach patrol, and 100 summer students for monitoring and invasive species control. There have been more than 100 projects with farmers working to address hydrology further upstream. In the last 4 years, more than 200 jobs have been created. This is just one snapshot. Green Infrastructure Ontario estimated that 60,000 jobs could be created by investing in the building of natural infrastructure, and that if we were to align systems and efforts, that up to 140,000 jobs in Ontario could be a stretch target. It is therefore the recommendation of Wildlands League that Canada invest in rebuilding the natural world where we live as part of a healthy economic recovery. It is time we put nature at the heart of economic recovery. I will conclude with one more example. Windsor, Ontario is the flood capital of Canada. The risk to homes and municipal pocketbooks is exacerbated by climate change. It is also a biodiversity hotspot with a high diversity of species and a high number of endangered species and little in the way of protection. There's less than 1% protected in southwestern Ontario with pressure for more development. Windsor is a perfect example of how rebuilding the natural world would benefit the quality of life, economy, and nature. If we were to build more natural infrastructure that could manage water flows in the city, protect the Ojibwe Shores Complex as a national urban park, and establish ecological corridors that stretch out to the surrounding rural areas and work with the farming community. I'm going to skip to my last points here. This is not isolated in Ontario because rebuilding nature where we live works in Saskatoon, Vancouver, Halifax, Montreal, Edmonton, Ottawa. And if we can generate more than 100,000 jobs in Ontario by building with nature, we can do even more than that across Canada. And then think beyond that to the landscapes of regenerating seismic lines across BC, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Newfoundland, and the Northwest Territories. Thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you very much. We will now start our round of questions. For our first 6-minute round, the first slot will go to MP Dreeshen. You have the floor.
Well, thank you very much, Madam Chair, and it has been interesting to listen to the witnesses this morning. There are various views that I have heard. We look at tax credits to make things work, and others saying that the worst thing we could do is to give tax credits because that would encourage bad behavior. I guess I'll start with Mr. Fogerheim. Whitecap Resources, I've seen the type of work that our oil and gas industry has done to become world leaders. And your work with carbon capture, utilization, and storage is amazing. There are other projects in Alberta that are doing the same, taking hundreds of thousands of equivalency of cars off of the road. Of course, it's happening in Alberta, so it doesn't seem like anybody really cares about what is taking place there. Um, I'm I'm concerned somewhat because the way I look at it, we talk about all of these great things that we're going to do, and we're going to have all of these minerals that we are going to take out of our landscape. And then our last witness had indicated that we have to protect our landscape, so therefore we're not going to really want to advance that in all areas. We heard a couple of days ago from Indigenous leaders saying they need to have jobs and to be part of our natural resource development, and oil and gas is so critical for them. We've heard from miners saying that it where any place else in the world you can get a project done in 9 months, it takes years and years here. We have C69, which has been put in, which ensures that that is going to happen forever. Um, where are we going to get all of these minerals in order to create this electric vehicle battery development project when we have people that just don't want to see any development anywhere? And so, Mr. Fogerheim, I know the great work that you've done. How do you convince others that our oil and gas industry is the best in the world and that it's better for us to be developing our great resources than giving it to somebody else to do?
Thanks very much for your question, and I understand the frustration. We feel the very same frustration, um, getting recognition. I mean, this project, the again, the largest project in the world in Canada that has not been celebrated or brought forward onto the world stage outside of Canada. We're recognized in all other parts of the world, but in Canada, as to the sequestration and storage that we have. We have scientists continually coming in from all over the world. Monthly, we only do monthly tours.
Madame la Présidente, juste indiquer que le témoin pourrait baisser son micro, ça va faciliter l'interprétation.
Madam Chair, could the witness bring down his mic slightly to facilitate interpretation, please?
Microphone a little bit down
Okay.
because we're having difficulty with the translation. Thank you.
Can you hear that okay?
Let me just double check. Could you
Yeah.
speak a few words so we can hear?
Yes. Can you hear this okay? Can you hear me now?
Yes, the interpreter can hear this.
Can you hear what I'm saying at this particular time? I'll assume you can.
Yeah, perfect. Go ahead, sir.
Okay, thank you. So we are recognized around the world, other than in Canada, for what the Saskatchewan government, together working with the Canadian government, this project has been in existence since the year 2000. It's been running for 21 years, it's been studied. So getting recognition, first of all, I think we have to be recognized within our own country for the work that is being done in the oil and gas sector, not just in Alberta, Saskatchewan, British Columbia, Manitoba, but also in Quebec and Ontario, and being recognized. So getting the opportunity to understand the decarbonization and how responsibly developed our products are for the world to see. It has not been celebrated. We're continually challenged as to the makeup that we do have of bringing products to market. And I think it has to be. The only way we can succeed is being recognized by across all of our provinces. And we talk about that. Now you get into, we're going to advance. We hear that some of our presenters talk about we're going to have to build vehicles. That comes from steel. That comes from mining projects. You're building cars, machinery, ships, concrete buildings. We're going to have to continue to advance on that. These are all mined materials that takes energy, and we can lead in this. Plastics, bottles, tubing, paint, makeup. All this comes from products that are below the surface of the earth. So what we're going to have to do is recognize that there is a responsibility that we take seriously in Canada. But we have to if there's not a recognition and there's not a demonstration of measurable outcomes, we're not going to have success. When I look at, when I talk about cradle to grave, what we have to do is about 9 materials. When we're moving to renewables, these materials are hugely energy requiring. So we're going to have to understand that and recognize that this is an energy transition. It's not a start and stop exercise. We talk about hydrogen. We're involved in a couple of hydrogen projects ourselves. But the CO2, the offtake to that is massive, as large as it is on anything else. So we're going to, on any other products, we're going to have to make sure that we understand, respect where we're at, but this is where I talk about this energy transition, taking an extended period of time and be practical, logical, and move through efficiently as we move through time.
Thank you very much.
very much. We will now go to MP Johari. You have the floor for 6 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to all our witnesses for your testimony today. I'm going to start with Mr. Zacharias. Mr. Zacharias, on the report titled The Next Frontier that was published by your organization on April 2021, you made it, and you referred also into your opening remarks to this note, and quote, I say, Canada is well positioned to capitalize on what's been called the green economy supercycle, during which sustainably produced energy and mineral prices soar. Can you expand on what is green economy supercycle means, and you give us some background on the conclusion that you've come up to? What were the key elements of it?
Absolutely. The green economy supercycle is basically those elements, those products, those goods that are going to be required to transition the world to low carbon and net zero. Now, Canada has a very clean electricity grid at 83%. So we have the ability to basically produce and export products that are lower carbon than our competitors. For example, we have the lowest carbon aluminum in the world right now. Our steel, made from blast oxygen furnaces, for that technology is also the lowest carbon in the world. We also have our metallurgical coal that comes out of Western Canada, has half the GHG or greenhouse gas content and carbon footprint of that same coal coming out of Australia. The same goes for many of our forest products. Our pulp industry is the cleanest in the world right now from a GHG per ton on various pulp products. So we have a huge opportunity, not only in terms of the cleanliness in the products, but also in terms of our markets. We have the US adjacent to the south, we have the EU off to the east, and we have Asia off to the west. And also, we produce a lot of the things that the world is going to need. I'll give you an example right now around battery manufacturing and zero emission vehicles. Canada has abundant sources of nickel, lithium, graphite, cobalt, and copper. And those can be produced in Canada with low carbon content, and they can be used in Canada as well throughout the battery manufacturing cycle, and then used in zero emission vehicle manufacturing. You may be aware, but the big three automakers all have agreements now with their unions and the various levels of government around producing zero emission vehicles in Canada. So it makes sense that we would back up that supply and value chain and start looking at not only the batteries that go into the vehicles, but also the metals and minerals that go into them as well. So that's just an example of the green economy supercycle. I believe the term was coined by Bloomberg Finance.
Thank you. In the same article, your organization talks about the 4 additional recommendations, and you touched on that in your opening remarks. The one that piqued my curiosity was Canada needs a rebrand, and you're saying, or at least the article is saying, we need to not only export low carbon goods, but a new clean Canada brand to the world. Can you expand on that, please?
Yes, many of our markets, particularly in the EU, parts of Asia, and now increasingly in the US, are really unaware of the low carbon content and low carbon footprint of Canadian products and services. Canada's largest export has been fossil fuels, and it has been for quite some time, and it probably will be for the next at least several years or a decade. But there is a tremendous opportunity and an export opportunity for Canada to show not only our export markets, but also Canadians themselves that we have a good story to tell and that our products can help the world transition to the Paris Agreement scenario.
Thank you. On the same article, I found that article, by the way, very very interesting, as well as the article that talks about well, it's titled "Taking the Wheel." The comments that was made in there and the recommendation was very helpful, at least to me. Under the shifting global landscape, you talked about both EU and US policies, while differing in intent, have same implication for Canada. And that implication is our export industries need to be nimble and increasingly clean. Can you talk about the nature of when you say nimble? I understand what nimble means, but how could they become more nimble as well as increasing their clean technology?
Well, there's a number of elements that kind of go into the definition of nimble. One is government policy, particularly at the federal, provincial, and territorial level, is when we do have opportunities for new companies to come and set up shop in Canada, attracting anchor companies, we have to seize those. I think if you look at Quebec's Lion Electric, they've been getting orders for Amazon trucks for UPS, doing incredibly well. Lion Electric is also looking at becoming a battery manufacturer, and they've had a recent announcement there. So that's kind of one example of where government intervention has allowed this to become more nimble. I would also look at another example in Quebec around attracting hydrogen, and basically a very large new 88 megawatt hydrogen facility. And I think that's great news for Canada. Canadian industries have the ability to compete globally, and with a bit of help and a bit of transition, they're able to do so.
Thank you. I would have loved to be able to go into the hydrogen, but I'm out of time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, MP Johari. We will now turn to Député Lemire. Vous avez 6 minutes.
You have 6 minutes, Mr. Lemire. Thank you, Madam Chair. My first question will be for Mr. Charnet from NACAM. First, thanks for being here. Thank you for your technology that I think would respond to a very important need and on knowing how to use final residual materials. But let's talk about some of the negative impacts you feel at NACAM. For Quebec and Canada, there is an absence of a Canadian regulatory framework that's clear for a minimum content of biofuels produced from residual materials and those that have low carbon intensity. Yes, thank you. Right now, external markets, especially in Europe and the United States, are more attractive because they have put in place regulations promoting the use of second-generation fuels with low carbon content. It's more profitable for NACAM to sell in California and Europe and to use circular chemistry. In Canada, we have to put in place market conditions to have projects and consumption of biofuels. Canada cannot fully benefit from the reduction of greenhouse gases. The clean fuel standard that is currently being developed could put in place a regulatory framework to promote the deployment and use in Canada. But for us, we must have consistency in terms of life cycle. Make sure that all waste be recognized by credits, have a percentage of circular and bio components. As in California, we have renewable electricity and hydrogen as zero carbon intensity to support increased production. We must also allow producers of low intent carbon to buy renewable electricity, promote book and clean. We must finally recognize and have credits for using residual forestry biomass, tree barks, final use that often produce higher levels of greenhouse gases. So you're saying that a clear Canadian regulatory framework that will have a minimum content of biofuels produced from residual materials gas in low carbon engine, that these would be strong incentives. What does Quebec and Canada need to develop conditions, market conditions that are competitive in terms of bioenergy? Do you have any specific recommendations for the government? Yes. For us, we must make sure that there is consistent support for innovation in technology using programs like the Strategic Investment Fund. The Strategic Innovation Fund should be used as an incentive to support those who first get involved in this new technology. That's a concrete measure. I also mentioned to have the book and claim, renewable electricity. For us, using it these are things that are used in different areas around the world, and it's a big incentive. There are incentives to produce low carbon content chemical products. You mentioned the Strategic Innovation Fund. It's a great program. The way it's drafted, have you had access to this program? Do you know how it works exactly? We are involved in some administrative processes for several years. Unfortunately, the gentleman's sound makes it really hard to interpret. We'll just try to summarize. So, throughout the world, there are groups that recognize our expertise, our technology, and they have invested. So, it was a difficult process through the Strategic Innovation Fund. So, I understand that the main fund invested by the federal government, it doesn't really matter for you people who are directly in the field. Another question. For NRCM and broadly Quebec and Canada, what would be some of the advantages and criteria in terms of taking into account the carbon footprint for federal funding? For us, it creates a market. It promotes technology and innovation. We are working in partnership with industry. Everyone is part of the solution, and the industry has an incentive to do innovation. As far as favorable market conditions, the standard and biofuels with low carbon content, could this open up new opportunities internationally? We're talking about a Quebec market. What about possibilities overseas? Yes, it's easier to export a solution with a strong Quebec Canada brand, which is quite strong internationally, but it would promote the development of technology in Canada before going international. And we think that our waste, we don't pay too much for it, so that limits your access to raw materials. Yes, and the fact that there is no standard in terms of circular products. You could have plastics. There could be standards that X percentage of plastics have to be circular. Thank you.
Massey, you have the floor for 6 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And my first question will be for Ms. Sumner with regards to, you mentioned that Windsor being the flood capital of Canada. I'd prefer to be known as the auto capital, especially the green auto capital for the future, but with EVs and battery development, but that's a side issue. One of the things that I'm struggling to figure out as we look at some of the kind of the programs that are rolling out, there's the tree planting program, there's some urban infrastructure program, there's a series of different initiatives that are out there, but there doesn't seem to be a comprehensive coordination of all those programs, and I'm wondering whether that's also missing some opportunity from the province. What's your thoughts about like almost having like a master plan, city by city, so to speak, for federal incentives to green our environment and increase our spaces for eco recovery?
Thank you very much for the question. Yes, I think that what we have right now is a good start. It's the promise of investments in building new urban protection and near urban protection, a tree planting program, investments in nature-based solutions, an ability to hopefully see more natural infrastructure investments. I would suggest that the piece that is missing is how to be more intentional about these. You could take any number of municipalities, but if you look at Windsor, you've got the possibility to do new urban protection, even offshore, the ability to do a national marine conservation area, investing in natural infrastructure at the same time as you're doing out to the fuller landscape and looking at creating jobs and economic opportunity by restoring habitat and working with farmers on hydrology changes that would benefit the farming community, but also benefit our increasing our resilience to climate change. That works very well across the Golden Horseshoe as well, where you see everything from the Rouge to Coutts to Escarpment, the Toronto ravines, natural infrastructure, the green belt. All of that could be more intentional and working in harmony, and then linking in and making a bigger objective rather than each of those individual programs in isolation.
Yeah, and one of the things when I was doing a lot of my border work, a gentleman that did a lot of border work for Sarnia and also even from Windsor, Stan Corsic is his name. He actually was an OPP officer and then later on got special training on how to use the environment for security instead of like putting up fences and stuff like that and so forth. But what I thought is, what are your thoughts about like we had the Toronto Community Benefits Coalition here. And what I'm so struck by is that is there an opportunity to get our young people in areas like so the bridge where it's being built, and I'm trying to get and I know that you've been supportive and others for a national urban park in that area. What's the opportunity to get young people into almost like a skilled trade, so to speak, for some of these infrastructure projects, and it could be transferable skills or skills they could use in other places. Similar when I was growing up, we had people that would go tree planting from different places to different places. Is there a real opportunity here for jobs that also could be transferable and used in multiple locations and almost like a really high degree trainable asset that would last for young people?
Yes, I quite agree with you, MP. That in the Rouge, for example, I know that they've employed over 100 students to help monitor, but also work on the reintroduction of species that are native to the area. So those summer jobs are more than just tree planting, because that's the other thing is that the job opportunities with nature are often seen as reductive down to, oh, we're going to plant some trees. I mean, that's certainly part of it, but the other aspect is scientific monitoring. They work with the academic institutions, the University of Toronto Scarborough campus, working with the Toronto Zoo. It's engaging young people and giving them career paths to perhaps bigger and brighter futures by working with these different institutions in enabling the science and actually making it real and bringing back these areas, bringing them back to life. So yes, I think in every community that you were to engage with this, there is an opportunity to bring in youth, also Indigenous partners and Indigenous jobs in terms of bringing back the native species and learning ceremony and how to invest in these natural areas.
And similar when we think about like a place like mine, traditionally it's you're thinking about skilled trades where it's like it could be going back to the old ages, be working on auto skills or it would be working on woodworking skills or so forth, even some electrical plumbing. Is that once you learn these environmental infrastructure skills, are there also those skills that you bring back to your own home, to your own neighborhood, to your own community, either as a volunteer or is there greater sophistication of using those types of skills to better enhance when your time is off, so to speak, when you're not involved in these projects, like adding a value-added capacity like we've never seen before. And I would suggest even retraining, not just young people, but also retraining for that. Is there value in that?
Well, I think that you will notice that the garden centers have probably doubled and tripled their business as we've seen from the pandemic, and the desire of Canadians to get out and be in nature, but also start reclaiming it in their own backyards, whether it's growing their balcony, growing fruits and vegetables in their backyards, et cetera. And so this ability of people to connect with nature, have jobs that are about rebuilding with nature at the heart of it, but also taking that into their homes and building those connections for their children, their extended family, and their entire community. I think that those skill sets and starting to see the natural world in a different way are completely transferable.
Right, thank you. And I see you have the card, Madam Chair. So thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll now start our second round. We'll start with MP Généreux. Vous avez 5 minutes.
You have 5 minutes. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank all the witnesses. Thank Mr. Shone from NACAMP. I would like to thank you, to ask you, based on what we've seen in my region. In 2010, an announcement was made from the Conservative government at the time to invest in a project to process, it was called the SEMER. Maybe you heard about this. It was a 12 million project from the start, then it became 24 million, and right now it's over 30 million. Right now, the SEMER is not producing enough revenue to manage its cost, and this has a major impact on the environmental cost associated to the project. I was in agreement with this project, still so, but the Quebec government decided to put in place at the time. I was in La Pocatière at that time, a policy to recycle all recyclable materials in Quebec by 2020. We're in 2021, so the date has been changed. Do you think that the policies put in place by the government should be complied with fully? Because I think NACAM, based on what I heard earlier, the answer to my colleague, Mr. Sebastien Lemire, you have had a lot of difficulties to face throughout your career. Yes, thank you. That's a good question. I can answer for SEMER as such. Just to put things in context, NACAM, we take residual materials after composting and added value and recycling, everything that's not recyclable. To answer your question specifically, the California model, the companies don't have to reduce the greenhouse gases. If they don't do it, they have a $200 penalty a ton to pay. So they have an indirect obligation. They have the option of not doing it, but it costs more. So it takes a strict rule and support from the population. Do you think the current national policies at the federal level are adequate? Are they rigorous enough to improve, to extend? I don't know what term to use. I understand the government's ambition to drop greenhouse gases by 45%. Is it realistic to believe that with residuals it's possible? In Canada, we have a unique opportunity to attain these goals, but all standards in regulation must support innovation. In California, the California standard supports innovation. It recognizes renewable hydrogen and it ties with renewable electricity. So there is a calculation of the life cycle that's maintained throughout the industry. And we can recognize and grant credits in our sector for deviation. Where would the waste go if they were not recycled? So the Clean Fuel Standard is trying to address that, but there must be consistency. The standard must stimulate innovation because California and Europe, they have succeeded in doing so. So, based on what Mr. Lemire said, so am I already through my time? So you were not able to obtain money from that fund. Do you have access to other funding means from the federal government? Yes, for 20 years in NACAM, we've gone through all the programs. The SDDC, they were a good partner. They supported NACAM. Even the Strategic Innovation Fund, we faced some obstacles. The goal is quite laudable, but It's a heavy administrative burden. That's it for me, Madam Chair. Thank you. Mr. Genero.
Melissa, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I'd like to thank all of our witnesses that are here with us today to answer questions. Ms. Sumner, I'm going to begin with you. There's actually a group in my riding that advocate for the protection of wetlands in Saint Laurent that are near a techno park that I've actually gone to visit myself, and it's quite beautiful. They have many different species of birds, including endangered species that go and consider that their home. And so one of the problems that the people who wanted to protect this ran into, and actually the mayor of my riding as well as myself ran into, were that Parks Canada didn't necessarily consider this the natural habitat of these species of endangered birds. And so that was what was kind of blocking Parks Canada from taking the next step or from moving forward, even though, we are, as a Canadian government, trying to protect, I know in the last budget and in our platform, 25% of our natural lands. But any comments on Parks Canada and the way that they go about protecting, and what are things that stand in the way, and what are ways that we can improve the way that Parks Canada works in order to be able to protect more and have less barriers for organizations willing and wishing to protect areas?
Mm. You raised some very, very good points. I think that one of the places that we are in right now is that we are in a place of learning from nature. That as climate change is affecting our environments and shifting ecosystems, and in fact, as ecosystems are under pressure and there is less area for species perhaps to be in locations where they normally would have been, we have to start learning from species and from nature. One of the things that I'm encouraged about with Parks Canada is I believe that they are looking at some new models that they will be taking out and having a conversation with the public around the development of ecological corridors, for example. Ecological corridors, using a guideline developed by the IUCN, will be about what are the ecological functions we find there and how do we protect those. It may not be strict protection, but it may be a more flexible tool to help us achieve some of our ecological objectives around species. And then, of course, CWS at Environment Canada has also got a responsibility for helping manage and protect endangered species, which may not use the tool of strict protection, but other tools. And so I think that for all of us, these are unprecedented times as nature is shifting and trying to adapt. And it will be important for all levels of government and, in fact, all of society to be continuing to learn in these very real live experiments that we are seeing play out in our backyards. And so I don't know the particulars of this specific case, but I would hope that there can be an open dialogue with Parks Canada as they are in a learning mode and trying to bring new products to the public that can help achieve the goals around protecting endangered species and growing habitat, in fact.
Amazing. That's good to know. Thank you very much. Maybe I'll push them to try again now that they're in this learning mode. And my next question actually goes to Mr. Fagerheim. I know that you mentioned that you you have a great storage system for CO2, and that's how you've maintained zero net emissions. I guess if we look at I guess production versus storage. And so I'm wondering what happens once the storage space runs out. I'm not a scientist. I don't really know how this stuff works, but how sustainable is this solution?
Well, long term, very much so. Thanks for your question. Just from the, um, we have capacity right now. We've stored just in the one particular reservoir, we've stored 36 million tons, as I referenced earlier. We have capacity today to move in that one reservoir an incremental 80 million tons, so up to about 116 million tons. And identified on our lands in Western Canada at this particular time, we have storage capacity up to about 250 million tons. So there's plenty of capacity in the reservoirs. There's infrastructure in place to our existing assets. But if infrastructure, we think about this long term, when we talk about the transition, what we do, and just so you're aware, we acquire the CO2. We don't get credits for acquiring the CO2, but we acquire the CO2, we sequester it, put it in the ground. We don't get credits for it. But we recycle approximately 1/3 of that. So let's use 300 million cubic feet a day of CO2. We sequester about 200 million a day is recycled, and about 100 million a day is new purchases that we have to acquire at this particular time to put in the ground. So we don't get credits with those. That's so across Western Canada.
Mr. Fagerheim, I'm sorry, we're really over time. I wanted to allow you to finish your explanation for the benefit of the committee, but unfortunately we're really over time. So maybe at a subsequent round you can elaborate a little further. With that, we will go to Député Lemire. Vous avez 2 minutes.
Mr. Lemire, you have 2.5 minutes. Thank you, Madam Chair. You always find this balance between fairness and respecting speaking time. So let me go back to NCAM. I know Canada doesn't have the right regulation to valorize residual materials, final materials. I understand that the cost could be increased to make sure that the raw material is available for your technology, and the challenge that you face with these regulations. What sorts of models do we have internationally that are at the forefront on the market? Those who work in reducing carbon. We often talk about California, the United States, Catalonia, Europe generally. Could you refer to some of these models? Well, I could talk about that a little bit. Thanks for the question. One of the models for us that's the flagship, as it were, is California under the new carbon fuel standard. California established a roadmap for reduction of greenhouse gases. That's about 2-3% a year up till 2030, with fines for non-compliance for $200 US by CO2, but 1 ton of CO2. So that's one of the most rigorous mandatory standards that has greatly promoted innovation. So the industry is fully engaged. The petrochemical industry accepts this model. They participate fully, and they are always trying to come up with solutions. Another interesting model throughout Europe is the Renewable Energy Directive 2. It was renewed up to 2030. Countries are already working to renew it to 2040. One of the difficulties in our sector, there are technological risks in innovation. We know that to fund those projects, there is also market risk. So regulations are not always rigorous enough. So there are difficulties in funding these projects because of that. They cannot be funded conventionally. They require a regulatory plan that goes beyond 2030, that goes well into the future. Thank you. So if I understand you, you're saying the fact that a business, a municipality doesn't, you're not forced to buy. You can take the money, send the container to other countries for processing, but you're not being forced to handle that here and improve conditions for companies such as yours. Yes, right now, based on life cycle analysis, sending plastics in the sea, in the ocean, or in a depot, that's an aberration. But in life cycle analysis, there are no credits linked to that. Thank you.
Massey, you have 2.5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to return to Ms. Sumner with regards to the National Marine Park, and the reason being is that this was raised. I'm Vice Chair of the Canada-U.S. Parliamentary Association, and the U.S. actually even wrote the federal government about providing monies for the Great Lakes, and they're doing a lot of cooperative work on the state level and their federal level. The Biden administration is putting some more resources in there. Would this not be an opportunity, and how well positioned are we to actually look at something like that for the Great Lakes, especially given the fact that there is a push from the Biden administration, even from also Republicans, to put more money into the Great Lakes. And so I'm wondering about the viability of that as one of those projects to get off the ground.
Thank you very much for the question. I actually think it's a very good idea to be looking at national marine conservation areas in the Great Lakes. And most people think that when we talk about a national marine conservation area, because of the word marine, we're talking about saltwater. But in fact, that tool can be used in a freshwater system because it's international waters, and that's what makes it possible for Parks Canada to use that as a tool for protection. We have supported the need to see national marine conservation areas in all of our Great Lakes, including our sixth Great Lake, which is Georgian Bay, and we would like to see having marine protection in each of those. And I think that with the auspices of the Great Lakes Water Quality Agreement being needed to be renegotiated and worked on with the U.S., that this would be one of the perfect times to be looking at NMCAs as a potential tool in the Great Lakes. It would work in Lake Ontario, Lake Erie, obviously, Georgian Bay, et cetera, and trying to move those forward. And one of the fantastic things about marine protection is that it actually grows more fish and bigger fish adjacent to that area. So it actually helps in terms of commercial fishing.
So in terms of Leamington, which is actually one of the larger fishing operations in Canada, that would be a real net benefit. We're struggling with algae blooms and a few other things, but this is a very much robust, not only just fishing and then, but also processing material. So that would benefit from that type of an ecological investment than is what you're suggesting?
Certainly, if it was partnered as well with terrestrial protection, I think that you could do an amazing job in the Leamington area. Having grown up in London, I know Leamington quite well, and so I think that just off the shores of Lake Erie would be an amazing place for a new NMCA.
Yeah, I went to Point Pelee and then I got some fish from a local shop on the way home. It was still open. I think my time's up. Thanks, Madam Speaker.
Thank you so much. With that, we will now go to MP Polyev. You have the floor for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much. My question is for Mr. Fagerheim, the CEO of Whitecap Resources. Mr. Fagerheim, I'm going to read you a quote from Elon Musk, who is, of course, one of the most famous renewable energy and energy transformation entrepreneurs in the world. And he says the following: if there was a button I could press to stop all hydrocarbon usage today, I would not press it. Reporter: you would not press it? Of course not. Reporter: you would not press it because, he replies, it would cause human civilization to come to a halt. Every hospital would have to close down. It would be ridiculous. It would be irresponsible to press that button. What does need to happen, if we can, is to accelerate the transformation to renewables. That's the sensible thing to do. That seems to be what you are doing, Mr. Fagerheim. You have invested in carbon and capture and storage. You have the biggest carbon sequestration facility deposit in the world. And I understand that you are the head of the only carbon negative petroleum company on planet Earth. In other words, your company takes more greenhouse gases from the atmosphere, or avoids it being pumped into the atmosphere in the first place, than you actually emit. In other words, if your company didn't exist, there would be more greenhouse gas emissions than there are now. Do you agree with Mr. Elon Musk when he says that shutting down oil and gas, as is the policy of the federal government, would bring civilization to a halt if it were to happen without a just and sensible transition like you are attempting to, through your investments in technology, achieve?
Thanks, Mr. Polyev. And I do appreciate what Elon Musk is attempting to do. It's a fairly draconian statement to talk about shutting down civilization without oil and gas. But what the comment we should be taking from that is that civilization is extremely, extremely linked to hydrocarbon products. We're talking about oil and gas into the future, our livelihoods, whether it's hospitals, any chemical production, anything that we do at this particular time um, in society, everyday society, the clothes we wear, all the textiles, they all rely on hydrocarbon products. So we agree on the medical science side, on hospitals closing and the amount of materials that are used, petroleum products. We have to be, this is where I come back to, we need a measured approach. We need um, a measured approach into the future, which relies on science and technology. So carbon capture, utilization, storage, um, we're going to transition for an extended period of time. This is not a start and stop exercise. It should be respected and rewarded. What it isn't talked about much, and just to close off on that, is the hydrogen development side that everyone is so excited about. Hydrogen development needs carbon capture as well.
Right.
So there is going to be a transition phase that we should be advancing through very practically, logically, and sequentially.
Right. And according to the International Energy Agency, the world will be consuming 100 million barrels of oil 20 years per day, 20 years from now in 2040. And even with the most draconian governmental policies to restrain use of hydrocarbons, there will be at least 60 million barrels a day of worldwide petroleum consumption. The question is, where do we want that to be produced and how? Do we want it to be produced by the Saudis, Venezuelans, Algerians, and others, and then imported to Canada, which is the policy of this government? Or do we want our own Canadian industry, as exemplified by your company, that employs 700 people and empowers First Nations communities and actually reduces greenhouse gases? Or do we want hostile foreign polluting nations to make our energy for us? Which option should Canadians pick?
Very quickly, as you're out of time.
I would say that just get back to the respect that the Canadian energy space has. It should be recognized, celebrated, and brought forward with all the, and we're worldwide known, not just Whitecap, but the energy sector in Canada is understood to be the most responsibly developed hydrocarbon products anywhere in the world.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. We will now go to MP Assassi. You have the floor for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you to all the witnesses. I found today's testimonies to be very helpful. Now, if I could start off with Mr. Zacharias. Mr. Zacharias, as you know, the study before us is about green recovery in the context of what the government can do to ensure that we come out of this stronger. Now, you talked about Canadian innovation. You talked about it in the context of our clean electricity grid, but also in terms of products such as aluminum, steel, and forest products. This rebranding that you speak of, and you're essentially saying the world needs more Canada, where have we dropped the ball? How can we do a better job promoting Canadian exports in these specific fields?
Well, there's many points to that, many parts of that answer. I think first and foremost is our federal missions and trade missions abroad should be basically promoting the fact that Canada, our largest exports are currently fossil fuels and auto parts, but we can do much more. And we should have education awareness of all of our outreach in terms of working with other countries and other companies around what our opportunities might be. So I think that's one of the first parts in terms of a Canadian export brand. The second one is very few nations know that we do have carbon content standards and carbon content, the ability to produce goods and services that are much lower than many of our competitors. British Columbia in the last 2 years has actually done the benchmarking, showing that, yes, the commodities that British Columbia exports are lower carbon than almost all of its competitors. That needs to get pushed out into the global market. So when companies like BMW are looking for lower zero carbon aluminum, they'll look at Canada for sourcing that. When companies are looking at copper for global EV manufacturing, they'll look at Canada. We are big producers in this, and we can do a good job. And also, too, it really is about rethinking around our export markets. And for many years, we've been looking to post 2008, 2009 recession. Much of Canada looked at Asian markets to grow our market share there. We also now have the U.S. Looking at border carbon adjustments and also looking at the U.S. buy clean. So the export brand is not just a aspirational thing that we would like to do. It's something we're going to have to do to demonstrate the carbon content of our products in order to be able to trade with new nations.
Thank you very much for that. So now, if I could take it to another issue, which is, again, with respect to the need to reposition. You spoke of some of the announcements that we've been hearing over the course of the past year with respect to electricity vehicles. Some of the announcements that we've heard from the top three manufacturers, auto manufacturers, who have worked with their unions. Are we doing a good job making sure that we're focused on that particular sector and we're taking advantage of all those opportunities that are there?
I think we are. I think Canada, particularly since the Biden administration has come into power, has had a particular focus on the automotive industry. It is such a large part of Canada's economy, and it's part of our economic and cultural history. And also, too, the ability to seamlessly integrate, as we have been doing, into the U.S. market under their U.S. kind of Buy America policies. I think Canada has been doing a good job on this. I think where Canada could do a little bit more is backing up value and supply chain to look at what are the components and what are the metals and materials that are going to be going into these vehicles? Where do they come from? And how do we try and ensure that they actually come from Canada? And there's another part of this too around the buy clean aspect, around if we can actually have the Canadian federal government through things like infrastructure projects use low carbon materials such as steel and aluminum that are actually produced in Canada, we can scale up production of these, and then that production can then go into things like vehicle manufacturing. We have an opportunity here to connect a whole bunch of dots, and I think there's some growing realization and recognition just over the last couple of months, and particularly in Budget 2021, that shows that thinking is happening.
Thank you for that. Now, in terms of backing up our value chains, are we well positioned insofar as battery manufacturing is concerned in this country?
I don't have much time left, but we are in early days and we are playing catch up to Asia and catch up to Europe and catch up to the US. So we have work to do.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll now start our third round of questions, and our first round will go to MP Baldinelli. You have the floor for 5 minutes.
Great. Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to all the witnesses for being with us today. And, I'm going to build and follow up on the comments of my two colleagues, Mr. Azasi and Mr. Johari. And if I could, I'd like to ask Mr. Zacharias. I, too, have printed off the report, The Next Frontier, and was examining it. And I was really struck by the comments and enjoyed listening to the comments about, this opportunity as we move to a net zero by 2050 provides a huge economic opportunity for Canada, and the notion that a climate plan is also an economic plan. And I agree on your comments on that. And in looking in your report, in the section that talks about the advantages, you identify the three: our clean energy, our clean tech, and our carbon capture technologies and our supply chain. So I just want to talk about the two of them. I mean, I come from a community that has two hydro generating facilities. So we produce in Niagara with Beck 1 and Beck 2, Sir Adam Beck stations, 2,200 megawatts of hydroelectric clean power that's put into the grid. My question is, when talk about the grid and the notion of hydroelectricity and the 83% emissions free and so on, but it's an aging grid that's in place. And I'm wondering if you've done any studies about what is required from an investment perspective to kind of update our grid to take advantage of the growth that's going to be required in the future.
No, it's a great question, member. So about 60% of Canada's electricity is produced by hydro right now. And as you note, member, that grid is aging. However, there are new technologies coming behind that will be able to produce power at much lower rates and store it in ways that we can't even imagine today. It was inconceivable even 5 or 10 years ago that you would get renewables, solar and wind, below about 5 cents a kilowatt hour. Just over the last couple of weeks, Saudi Arabia just bid out a new solar array at 1.04 cents per kilowatt hour. So that's the production of the renewables, and it's plummeted in costs. And Canada, I believe, is 9% growth on wind. I'd have to check on that. But also on the other side of the equation is, how to store renewable energy. So right now, there are companies in Canada like HydroStore out of Ontario that are building very large grid-scale storage facilities in California, such that our costs are going to be plummeting around being able to store electricity produced from renewables. This, and combined with Canada's existing nuclear plus our hydroelectric, puts us in very, very good position. Because if we are going to be producing, for example, clean hydrogen from electrolysis, we're going to have to scale up our generation across Canada.
Great, thank you. Also, as part of that one aspect that you talked about, our clean energy advantage number one, you did talk about our clean energy advantage can also support Indigenous self-determination. I was wondering if you could just expand on that a bit.
Yes, there is an organization called Indigenous Clean Energy that looks at building partnerships with Indigenous and nations and also rural and remote communities. The recent federal budget 2021 had, I believe it was $35 million for Indigenous clean energy generation. So there is an opportunity there, particularly as renewable grids require large areas with either wind or solar. And those can be located on a lot of Indigenous lands and Indigenous territories, ideally with their full consent and partnership.
Excellent. And lastly, I mean, when we talk about the advantage three on that notion of the supply chains, and you just spoke about connecting the dots when you were talking to my colleague about not only do we have the ability to produce those raw materials, but then we can actually create the materials to create the end product. And I think you identified we spend more than $7 billion annually on imported steel and aluminum materials that are typically higher carbon than our domestic options. So, I mean, if you could quickly expand on that and how we could turn that into another advantage for us.
Absolutely. In BC, the Patello Bridge replacement will be using steel that's going to be sourced from Asia. That steel could have come from Ontario steel plants, and they produce the same type of steel that could be necessary. What would have been required in that case is some federal policies around finding the lowest carbon sources of steel. If those sources of steel come from Canada, which ideally they would, that steel would be used in Canadian construction, and we would scale up our industries.
Thank you so much. And I saw the card from the chair, so thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
With that, we'll go to MP Jasek. You have the floor for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and thank you to all the witnesses for your very interesting testimony today. My first question is for Ms. Sumner, and I'm so pleased that you've had the opportunity to talk about the Rouge National Urban Park. As you're well aware, a very large part of the park is in my riding north of Steeles. And you've talked about the opportunity for economic development within the park, adjacent to the park. You may well be aware that Markham, the city of Markham, has great plans potentially for a gateway to the park. So I'm wondering if you could just expand a little bit on the opportunities north of Steeles in the Rouge Park, and whether you think our government, in fact, should be investing more within the park to allow for those economic opportunities, jobs for youth, etc. So just give us a picture of what you could see as the potential.
Thank you very much for the question. You're quite right. I'm very familiar with the park, having worked on the creation of it and worked with many of the interests around the park, including some of the farmers that are currently overlapping with the park and just adjacent to it. And the farming community have been a great asset to improving the ecological integrity, which was actually a really key point in developing the park, was to actually have the buy-in of the farmers to see themselves having a role. And so I see increased and further roles for the farming and agricultural community to be engaged in improving the ecological integrity of the park quite frankly, we've only just begun. It's early in in its development. I think it's what 4 years perhaps now that the maybe even less 3 years that the park has been fully up and operational. I know that the park superintendent has prioritized various areas that they've done development in. I suspect that we will be moving further north with anything from signage to interpretation, the visitor center, which will be a very, very important piece. And then also programs like restoration and building better hydrology for the park. That's a very key element, and a reintroduction of species. But I would also say that what we're seeing is now an investment in science and the partnership with the Toronto Zoo and the University of Toronto and various science and reintroduction programs and ecological restoration projects will be going forward, and we will only see more of those, not fewer. And when I recently spoke to the park superintendent to get an idea of just how many trees could be planted, for example, in the park, my understanding is that the Rouge National Urban Park could accommodate up to 500,000 more trees over an 18-month period. The catch on this is that the supply chain for trees is limited. So making investments in growers who could actually supply Rouge National Urban Park with the right trees to the right places would actually start to generate jobs and volunteer opportunities, quite frankly, as well. And so I think that um, this park, which is within an hour's reach of 7 million Canadians, is the perfect place to be investing. It is also about improving water retention and management levels for this area, which benefit everybody. I know that I live in 10 minutes of Rouge National Urban Park, admittedly in the south, but it actually was the area that survived the ice storm in 2013 the best because of the native species and the tree canopy that we have there. So I suspect that we will only see more jobs emerging from the regeneration of the nature in this area. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I totally agree with you. And believe me, there'll be plenty of volunteers available to plant those trees. Now, my next question actually is for Mr. Zacharias. Mr. Zacharias, you've heard from Mr. Fagerheim about the opportunity for carbon capture sequestration. Has Clean Energy Canada had the opportunity to look at this technology and to give an assessment in any way of its utility and its place?
Thank you, member. I have a yellow card, so I'll be very quick. Yes, the technology is robust. Yes, it does sequester carbon. It could use with some tax incentives like the US has. They have a 45Q tax credit that gives a $50 per ton incentive to store carbon underground. And Canada has a significant amount of basaltic geologic formations, as well as used oil and gas reservoirs in which you could store CO2.
Thank you very much. We'll now go to Député Lemire. Vous avez 2 minutes et demie.
2.5 minutes, Madam Lemmy. Thanks, Madam Chair. I'll just follow up I'll follow up on a chem. So to understand what's happening, have a finished product that's green energy, ethanol, methanol, and the impact is to reduce greenhouse gas effects. To produce this from renewable energy like hydroelectricity, but I know that the clean fuel standard, has an impact for you, especially in terms of the price. You can sell in a market like California because the emission factor is based on the Canadian average, and we know that in the rest of Canada we can produce it from petroleum derivatives or petroleum itself. The carbon index, the Canadian average, is it an impediment in the clean fuel standard? And I'd like to know some more. What are some of the economic benefits of what you do in NRChem? Thank you for the question. The Canadian average in the clean fuel standard, California decided that electricity produced from renewable sources had zero impact or imprint. Same thing in Europe. In Canada, we felt that it could be higher. So the NRChem plant, it's about 500 employees And during operations that could last 25 years, there are about $85 million in economic benefits for Quebec and Canada. And our technology allows us to transform Canadian energy. We've had discussions with the petroleum industry. We're in partnership with the petroleum industry. With Sunco, we have a strong partnership. It's a perfect illustration of how we could complete each other as industry. Sunco operationally is quite strong, and we are strong with innovation. So we can offer solutions to reduce greenhouse gases. So it's getting away from landfill. So you recognize that we could go towards final residual materials, and you promote a circular economy. And you said you use forestry biomass. Can you speak a little bit about your economic model? Yes, what we're doing is advanced recycling. When we're talking about recycling, we're thinking about mechanical recycling, sorting centers, composting. But the fact is that the last 30 years, we're about 12% globally in recycling. So there is still a lot to be recycled. We are looking for materials, and we try to do advanced recycling. Thank you, Mr. Charnet. I know you've not really had an opportunity to finish that point. So if you could send us a document to the committee to get a little bit more in detail about the circular economy, don't hesitate to write to the clerk.
Half minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to move to Mr. Cochrane. With regards to what the U.S. and U.K., you mentioned that they're raising corporate tax cuts, but they're also moving into finding other revenue streams. How out of step is Canada right now, not addressing some of the profiteering that's taken place during COVID-19 and other countries that are actually doing some adjustments because there have been, even preferential government treatments to companies that have, really enjoyed some excess profits at this point in time. Telco sector, for example, is one. Bell, took in hundreds of millions of dollars, and at the same time has had, significant profits.
Thank you for the question. It's hard to say at this moment that Canada is out of step, but the fact that there has been very little discussion spurred on by what has come out of the US and the UK governments is worrying. The current Canadian government prides itself on being progressive and is currently being eclipsed in terms of progressive tax measures by the Biden administration and even by the conservative UK administration. We have seen that the pandemic has been K-shaped. A study by Canadians for Tax Fairness identified over 24 corporations that enjoyed record profits during the pandemic. So while lots of people were struggling to make ends meet, some companies were managing to bring in higher profits than ever before. And they were sending those profits to their shareholders, many of whom had become rich because of decades of the carbon subsidy. So it's been a little bit disconcerting to hear people complain that the fossil fuel industry is not getting the credit it deserves when the fossil fuel industry has been incredibly overdeveloped because we had the carbon subsidy in place.
Real quickly, sorry to cut you off. I'm just going to run out of time, though. But how important is this to redirect or redistribute to small businesses, say, for example, who right now are really struggling, and keeping them in some type of structure to be able to compete afterwards? I'm worried about small business getting sideswiped during all of this and a lot of bankruptcy.
Put the money there, support them, support those small businesses, support the local economy, support the things that will keep our communities thriving. And if the concern is that the debt is growing, then you can find the money where it is, which is with the wealth.
Great, thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. We'll now go to MP Dreeshen. You have 5 minutes.
Thanks again. One of our previous studies was on the activities of state-owned enterprises, and we've just completed that. And of course, one of the issues there has to do with mining operations. And of course, we have operations here in Canada. And as we heard in one of our last panels, there's concern that Chinese investors want to come here and to be able to be part of this new electric vehicle push as far as mining is concerned. And of course, so that's something that we have to be aware of. And of course, from multiple independent studies, we know that the use and regulation subsidies to force installation of costly renewable energy generation in Canada has reduced income and employment here, while it has benefited the suppliers of solar and wind generation equipment in other countries. And largely, these are from China. For example, 6 of the top 10 solar panel manufacturers are Chinese, the result of deliberate strategy by the Chinese government to dominate that market. Foreign dominance of manufacturing characterizes the production of wind turbines as well. Only in that case, the center is in Europe. One of the things is we try to talk about what will Canada do as we try to get into this new push as far as mining is concerned. Let's take a look at what China has done. There's an area in China, I don't know how deep this is, but it's 19 square miles of land that has been used to produce solar panels. If you work that out for every man, woman, and child, you take a coffee cup, and that's how much area has been taken just for solar panels, however deep that happens to be. We seem to forget that when it happens someplace else in the world, that it doesn't matter. If it was in our front lawn, maybe we would take a little different look at this. My concern is that we aren't paying attention to these other countries that are poised to take over from us. And if they can't produce, if they can't manufacture here, they'll go to some other country. And then so the competition, the opportunities for these companies, Canadian-based, are going to be very difficult to ensure their success. So, Mr. Zacharias, you've been involved in this, and you do understand what is happening in the rest of the world. How confident can we be that we aren't going to be overtaken by some of these other countries that actually don't have our best interests in mind?
No, that's a good question, member. My response to that, in terms of how to prevent Canadian companies, or from either how to prevent all of our purchases to go overseas to purchase things that could be made here in Canada, again, really comes back to a buy clean type approach. What the Biden administration is looking at in terms of the Buy America approach. The Canadian version would ideally be where we would look at carbon content standards of metals, materials, and products and goods that would come into Canada. And if those don't meet a threshold, they can't come in. And that would incent a number of things. One is that the manufacture of those things would be here in Canada and scale up our manufacturing. 2 is, once that happens, we would be able to reach a sufficient size in terms of some of our industries by which we could export into other markets, because we would have low carbon products and sustainability produced. And thirdly, too, is if those things are manufactured in Canada that will support a clean economy, including mining, they will also ideally use Canadian metals and minerals in their production. So these discussions are ongoing. Minister Wilkinson and Special Envoy Kerry made an announcement 2 weeks ago around kind of look at greening government. And that is the first step down this path to address some of the issues you bring up.
Okay, and just in the last minute, we talk about the U.S., we talk about Canada. We should understand and respect the fact that metallurgical coal is coming out of the northwestern U.S., going through our Vancouver Point, heading over to China to help them produce steel, which they then ship back to Canada, and undercuts our steel markets here. So I think those are issues that have to be worked into the calculations when we look at just where we're getting this from, who's winning and who's losing. Thank you very much. Do you have any quick comment on that?
Member, I fully agree with you. We have an enormous amount of Canadian met coal that comes out of British Columbia. It's moved over to Asia, is used to produce steel. That steel comes back into Canada. Meanwhile, we have a very sort of robust steel manufacturing industry here in Canada that could potentially use Canadian inputs. So I agree with you.
Okay. As long as people will let us use it, that's great. Thank you.
Yes. Is it my turn, Madam Chair? I presume that's a yes. Mr. Zach.
Actually, Mr. Polyev, you're out of time. That was the 5-minute round. My apologies. We'll now go to MP Erskine Smith. You have 5 minutes.
Thanks very much, Chair. And for a moment, I think maybe Pierre thought he was a liberal. You know, we all have those moments. I guess my question is for Clean Energy Canada as a starting point, and specifically in relation to training, because we heard from previous witness that when we look at the total expenditures and the green recovery plans from the government to date, that training is not really keeping pace. We heard from Celine back that 15% of the total spend typically one advises that it ought to be sort of focused on training. Can you speak to that aspect of the Canadian plan? And is that, in your view, an area that is underdeveloped and needs greater investment?
It's a good question. I'm not aware of whether Canada is in front of, behind, or equivalent to other nations in terms of training a workforce that's going to be aligned with the green economy. I know provinces and territories have stepped up their game over the last several years to make sure that there are programs that will support kind of where a new economy is going. But I'd be happy to take that offline and provide you some information, member.
Yeah, anything that you can send to the committee and follow up would be appreciated in writing. And the second question I have, based on past testimony, buildings. We have focused on buildings. Specifically, the government has moved forward in the recent budget with a $4.4 billion plan for home retrofits. How that will layer on to municipal existing plans, at least here in the Toronto, it remains to be determined. But when we look at the focus on commercial buildings, we see that from the infrastructure bank, but we don't really see the scale of investment required, from what I can tell, but I'm curious your thoughts, for public buildings, community buildings. There is a very modest fund to this extent. As it relates to retrofits, do you think there's much more work that needs to be done?
Yes and no. Buildings are 12% of Canada's total emissions. So compared to oil and gas at 26% or transportation at 25%, it's much smaller, but it's still material. I agree with you. The 4.4 billion in terms of the home retrofit loans will go a long way to help buildings. I think provinces and territories, depending on the province or territory, they do have provincial or territorial incentives that kind of vary across Canada and the landscape. I would agree there's more work to be done. It's not immediately clear to me exactly what that work would be and where the highest return on investment would be from a geography perspective and also from a which type of buildings.
So you wouldn't say, for example, that public buildings, and you use the example of, say, school buildings across this country, which seem to be quite old in many cases, and may be a place where municipalities and school boards would need financial support to do that kind of work. Are there gaps along those lines, or you would say uncertain at the moment?
It's uncertain in the moment. There's a lot of evidence that building retrofits are high cost and very lower GHG benefits around them.
Right.
Now, there is an employment component that's very important to it, and there's a jobs and training component that's very important. But again, we'd be happy to follow up with you on that.
And so, with the remaining time that I have, where would be the key gaps? If you say, well, uncertain as it relates to training and uncertain as it relates to buildings, if there is a missing piece of the healthy environment, healthy economy, the updated budget 2021 plan that builds on past work from the Pan-Canadian framework, what is missing that we need to tackle going forward?
Right now, transportation is 25% of Canada's emissions, and they're going up as more Canadians buy larger, heavy vehicles, SUV sales going up. So if there's an opportunity there, is first looking at light-duty vehicles. But we believe there would be of great value in having a light-duty vehicle sales mandate across Canada, much like Quebec and BC have. That would be a huge first step.
So move from a voluntary to a mandatory system.
Yeah. Much like California and most other countries in Europe have already done, and BC and Quebec. And so it becomes mandatory where you'd have sales targets that scale up over certain years, and then move into the medium and heavy duty vehicle space. We move a lot of goods across Canada with fossil fuels, and there's huge opportunities for electrification. California is starting to lead North America in terms of medium and heavy duty vehicles as well. And Canada has the added advantage of potentially actually building them here. So zero emission vehicles are already being built in Canada, and more could be built. A mandate would help that.
I was going to ask you what you might do to tackle the 26% that is oil and gas, but you've got 15 seconds. I expect the answer will take a little longer than that. So I appreciate your comments. I appreciate your time.
Great, thank you.
Thank you very much. So that ends our third round for today. I'd like to, I know we are a little bit before time, but we've been really good on time today. So I'd like to thank all of our witnesses for being with us today. Excellent testimony. For the members, if you haven't had a chance, on Friday, you received a working paper from the analysts that deal with a mineral intensive future challenges and opportunities for Canada, which is highlighting a little bit of what we heard last meeting as well as this meeting. And I highly recommend if you can give it a little read through, I think it'll be very helpful with respect to this study. So with that, I want to thank the witnesses again for being with us, to our analysts, our clerk, our IT crew, and of course, our incredible translators who, without you, we couldn't be doing what we're doing. So thank you everyone for an excellent meeting. And with that, I call the meeting adjourned. Merci beaucoup.